Now, David, before the break, we discussed Ontario's ad on tariffs. And Mark Carney confirmed today that he has not spoken to Donald Trump since trade talks were canceled last week. But he did say that he'd always make himself available to talk to the U.S. president.
Have you had any contact with President Trump since Thursday?
I have not.
Given that President Trump said today on Air Force One, I don't know if you heard this, but in the last hour, he said he doesn't plan to meet with you for a long time. Is it worth continuing to pursue a discussion, a meeting, a phone call with him at this point?
I didn't see the comment. Look, we stand ready to sit down with the United States, myself with the President, my colleagues with their colleagues, when the U.S. is ready to sit down. We had made considerable progress on a supplement to the trading relationship that we had, considerable progress in the areas of steel, aluminum, and energy, associated areas as well. And as I just said, we're ready to sit down when they are ready to do that. If they're not ready to do that, as those comments indicate, then we were always going to do these things, to be clear. We're going to first and foremost build our economy, build it with generational investments, and you will see that not just the scale of the ambition, but the speed with which we put that into effect in the budget on November 4th, and continue to do what we've been doing over the course of the last few days and over the course of recent months, which is to build those other partnerships and deepen those other partnerships on which we're getting very much traction. Thank you.
So, David, where do we stand right now? What happens next? And how seriously do you think the Canadian government is taking Donald Trump's reaction to this ad?
It's interesting because we have, in one hand, he's saying we were making considerable progress, and now it would appear that considerable progress has been undone, and the circumstances have been made worse. So, my view on this is it felt like there maybe seemed to be a lack of urgency on the prime minister's part because what he whether it was the right approach or the wrong approach, he had spent a lot of time and energy um, essentially trying to be friends with Trump and having that buddy buddy relationship, which many world leaders have realized they kind of have to do. And yet now we have an instance where they're shaking the hornet's nest or poking the bear. And it seems like, at least for now, that whatever progress we had made, however close we had gotten, is now completely undone. And where we go from here, I don't know, because we could have a scenario where there's just a complete lull in negotiations until we formally discuss the USMCA. I mean, that would be a huge negative for Carney, given how he campaigned, and we're well beyond the deadline of when he said we would have a deal done. So how we reconcile that, I'm not sure.
And to make all of this even more complicated, Ontario's finance minister faced questions from the press about the ad, specifically on the prime minister, if the prime minister's office knew about the ad in advance. And here's what he said.
Before the ads went out, the feds were fully in the loop what that ad was about.
Well, I'd have to, that's my understanding, but you'll have to ask Premier Ford or Prime Minister Carney that question.
So, if it's true that the PMO approved of the ad, why would Carney give Ford the green light to air it and then to pull it?
I do not know. I do not know. Um, the cynic in me views this as uncomfortably coordinated. And there is a scenario where the budget next week does not pass. And who benefits the most if the budget does not pass? It would actually be the Liberals and Mark Carney. And the reason why they would benefit the most is the NDP is in shambles. If there was an election next month, they would likely lose all but one of their seats. The Liberals would likely pick all of those up, which gives them a majority government. How were they successful in the last election? Despite being remarkably unpopular just 6 months prior, running against Donald Trump. And so this provocation from Doug Ford um, gives off the appearance now. It is important to note for viewers that Doug Ford did also confirm that Carney's office had seen and approved the ad as well. So there's no unless Carney disputes that, there's no gray area here on whether or not they saw it. So hypothetically speaking, if the budget fails and we are thrust into a snap election, we have a scenario where the Liberals basically get to dust off the we're going to stand up to Trump election playbook and try and run it back just a few months later, basically with the same narrative, reaching the same audience, while at the same time the NDP are in shambles and have no path to make electoral gain, especially leaderless. Most of those seats go to the Liberals. The Conservatives are still performing relatively well, but the path for the Conservatives to ever get to form government, as we knew from the Harper era, does somewhat rely on a strong NDP in terms of a vote split. And so the cynic in me worries that this is a scenario where they're poking the bear, because if the budget fails, we go into an election and it's advantageous for them to run against Trump again if we have an election in a month's time.
Well, David, thank you so much for breaking that down for us.
Not a problem.